Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave.
On behalf of every father and every mother
who waits for freedom. On behalf of our warriors.
and paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. We broadcast every week, normally on Sunday at 2100 Kyiv time. However, today we are broadcasting at that time on Saturday, on the day prior to Christmas Eve, due to all of the Christmassy goings on. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We are going. Oh, hello, Jonathan.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Jonathan, did you have anything you wanted to say to our audience before I begin my news report? Go ahead. Over to you.
I would just like to tell our audience that your news report is undoubtedly going to be fantastic. I'd like to wish everybody the happiest Christmas possible under whatever circumstances they're living in. Thank you. Let's crack on, shall we?
Thank you, Jonathan. We at Tochnyi wish everyone a happy holiday. It's of course chaotic for us, as I'm sure it is for you. So thanks for taking the time to tune in. We've done our best to get our act together. So hopefully everything goes according to plan. I will now begin. By the way, I guess the format of the show this week, we're just doing just a couple of news updates. Nothing huge. So it should be about 40 minutes to an hour of just some news. So I will, without any further delay, begin the news report for the week, starting with December 18th. On December 18th, Russian forces bombed 2 coal mines in Toretsk, which is in the Donetsk region, resulting in at least 3 deaths and 5 injuries of civilians. Ukrainian Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko confirmed that 32 miners were safely evacuated following the attack, which also damaged administrative buildings and equipment. Shelling in the southern Ukrainian city of Nikopol and the village of Tyaginka led to the deaths of 3 civilians. Regional Governor Serhiy Lysak reported that 2 women were killed in Nikopol and an 86-year-old man was injured. Additionally, 1 woman was killed in Tyaginka due to the shelling. Next item, also on December 18th, Valery Gerasimov, chief of the Russian General Staff, announced a comprehensive defense cooperation agreement between Russia and North Korea. This announcement, made at a conference with foreign military attachés, underscores Russia's strategic partnerships not only with North Korea, but also with India and China, or I should say that, like Gerasimov mentioned, those partnerships as well. Cooperation was further highlighted by Sergei Shoigu, the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu's visit to North Korea in July, and a subsequent summit that was held in September between President Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. These developments have raised concerns among the U.S. and allies, speculating that North Korea is supplying weapons and ammunition to Russia for the conflict in Ukraine, and alleging assistance in helping North Korea launch the reconnaissance satellite that they did earlier this year. U.S. National Security Council has assessed that lethal aid, including 1,000 containers of military equipment, has been transferred from North Korea to Russia. International responses have been critical, and there are several accusations that this partnership has violated United Nations sanctions. The U.S. suspects that, against North Korea, I should add, just because both countries are sanctioned to a degree. The U.S. suspects that Russia may be helping North Korea evade sanctions related to ballistic missile programs and aeronautical engineering. One other thing I should mention is I looked around. I couldn't find any specifics for this comprehensive defense cooperation. I think it was mostly just hot air, but it's maybe a good opportunity to zoom out a bit and look at the overall relationship between Russia and North Korea, which has certainly been increasing and has had a pretty significant impact on the amount of shells available, at the very least, to Russian forces. Of course, we're not hearing great reviews from the Russian Telegram channels about the effectiveness of said shells. However, shells are shells, right? I mean, even though they're bad, the fact that Russia has a lot and Ukraine, in a lot of cases, when they would need, there are a lot of situations where Ukraine would like to use a shell, but they can't because they need them for more important things, right? So even if these shells are in the short term helping Russia, or I should say in the short term, like they're blowing up their barrels and causing them injuries and problems and so forth. In the long term, strategically, if they don't care about all those other things that are happening, it does still help them to have this North Korean assistance. I think that Ukraine's allies obviously need to take this very seriously and I think respond accordingly. So hopefully that's being coordinated with South Korea and other countries. Next item on the list for December 18th, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky disclosed that the military has proposed the mobilization of up to 500,000 more Ukrainians into the armed forces. The proposal is currently under discussion and has not yet been sent to Parliament. Sorry, just one moment. Okay, sorry about that. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has disclosed mobilizing up to 500,000 Ukrainian soldiers into the armed forces. The proposal is currently under discussion and has not yet been sent to Parliament. President Zelensky emphasized the sensitive nature of this issue, indicating that it requires careful consideration by both the military and the government. Zelensky stated that he needs more convincing arguments in favor of this significant mobilization before he wants to put this decision before the civilian decision makers. He pointed out that the decision hinges on various factors, including the impact on people, fairness, defense capability, and financial considerations. The Ukrainian leader noted that in hryvnia, approximately $13.5 billion, would be required to finance such a large-scale mobilization, and he wants to seek further details about how exactly the troops would be effectively utilized in the ongoing conflict with Russia before the plan is implemented. Next item, I couldn't find anything specific for December 19th, at least anything big. I'm trying to get larger items worth discussing these days, so we'll move on to December 20th. On December 20th, the United States Department of State, along with the foreign ministries of Canada, Denmark, Estonia, France, Germany, Netherlands, Poland, Sweden, and the UK, formally announced and established something called the Tallinn Mechanism. This initiative is named after the Estonian capital and is designed to coordinate civilian cyber capacity in support of Ukraine. In Russia's ongoing war of aggression, there have been persistent cyber attacks against Ukrainian infrastructure and civilian targets, such as, for example, the Kyivstar hack, which was a major hack on Ukrainians' telecoms services last week. The primary aim of this Tallinn mechanism is to bolster Ukraine's cyber defenses and give them the capacity for self-defense in the digital domain. The Tallinn mechanism uses a rotating lead nation system comprising a front and back office, as well as a coordination group. Decisions on operational matters such as public statements and membership will require consensus among members. The public plan involves 3 mutually supportive strategies, short-term called support, medium-term called build, and long-term called sustain operations. It encourages involvement from the private sector and non-governmental actors and intends to engage with the EU and NATO. I'll add, I really looked for more specifics about what exactly this Tallinn mechanism will do like on the ground for Ukrainians in terms of cybersecurity. I couldn't find a lot. I think part of it might be kind of spooky secret stuff. But I think a lot of it is just that this is more of an effort to coordinate the existing bilateral assistance that's going on. So, for example, the UK has provided a pretty substantial assistance in this field before. And I think that it looks to me more like this is an effort to take existing cybersecurity resources and coordinate them under a single body so that there's not a lot of like redundancy going on. That seems to be more the goal here rather than to provide Ukraine like immediately with some special new cybersecurity capacities, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more information about the Tallinn Mechanism. Next item is for December 21st. On December 21st, the European Commission dispersed the final installment of $1.5 billion, or sorry, 1.5 billion euros, of course, under the Macro Financial Assistance, or the MFA Plus package for Ukraine. This brought the total support for 2023 to 18 billion euros, marking the largest macro financial assistance operation in the EU's history. This support aims to help Ukraine cover its immediate funding needs, including paying wages and pensions, maintaining essential public services, and restoring critical infrastructure damaged by the war. The disbursement followed the Commission's assessment on December 14th that confirmed Ukraine's successful implementation of agreed policy conditions and compliance with reporting requirements. These conditions aim to ensure transparent and efficient fund utilization. Ukraine demonstrated progress in enhancing its macro financial stability, strengthening its rule of law, improving the bankruptcy and insolvency framework, and advancing its energy system. The European Commission proposed establishing a dedicated facility to provide coherent, predictable, and flexible support to Ukraine for the period of 2024 to 2027. This proposal, amounting to up to $50 billion, or sorry, I keep saying $50 billion. I'm so sorry, folks. I'm terminally American, it seems. 50 billion euros is part of the EU's ongoing commitment to support Ukraine's economic stability, reforms, and reconstruction efforts. However, the approval of this program was delayed due to Hungary's veto. A special summit is scheduled for February 1st, 2024 to discuss the allocation of additional funds. I would add that European leaders seem fairly confident that this Hungarian veto won't stop this from happening. So I think we can look forward to some good news in February. However, it is December and Ukraine needs all the help it can get now. So hopefully we can at least have some movement behind the scenes so that by the time that the European leaders meet, something happens rather quickly. Next item is going to be for December 22nd. The Ukrainian Air Force reported that 3 Russian Su-34 fighter bomber aircraft were shot down over the southern front on the morning of December 22nd. The Su-34s were shot down by Patriot anti-aircraft missiles near Ukraine's Kherson bridgehead over the Dnipro River. The Secretary of Ukraine's Security Council, Alexei Danilov, noted that these aircraft have been a target for some time due to the danger they pose to Ukrainian soldiers. Lieutenant General Mykola Oleschuk, the commander of the Ukrainian Air Force, wrote a message on Telegram following the downing of the aircraft, highlighting the significance of this action. According to Ukrainian military reports, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Russia has lost 324 aircraft and helicopters. Before this incident, more than 20 Su-34s have been reported as shot down by Ukrainian forces, so that maybe puts into perspective 3 at once is pretty significant considering the span of the war. Russia is believed to have around 150 Su-34s, at least prior to the invasion, so maybe subtracting the 23 so far, that's maybe around 123. Russian Telegram also posted photos suggesting at least one of the pilots managed to eject successfully, although the pilot's condition remains unknown. Neither Ukraine or Russia have given any further updates on the pilot or the status. Next item, on December 22nd, also, US President Joe Biden signed a significant executive order designed to expand sanctions against entities aiding Russia's war efforts in Ukraine. The executive order enables the US Treasury to impose sanctions on financial institutions, including those in countries like China, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates that may assist Russia in evading sanctions. This measure underscores US commitment to ensuring global financial institutions do not become facilitators of Russian military efforts. Financial institutions found aiding Russian military procurement are at risk of significant US sanctions, including loss to the financial system. The order grants US authority to ban the importation of mined, produced, or harvested in Russia, even if they have been substantially transformed in third countries. Transformed meaning, let's say, petroleum is refined into gasoline or something like that. Right? This step is aimed at further curtailing Russia's ability to profit from natural resources and choke off revenue streams that could support military actions in Ukraine. The order stresses the need for global financial institutions to avoid facilitating activities that support Russia's war efforts. It calls for implementation of due diligence practice to protect these institutions from being exploited by Russia's procurement networks. The emphasis is on a global effort to prevent the circumvention of sanctions and the unauthorized support of Russia's military. I should maybe add that reading between the lines here, I think the administration is maybe suggesting that the global financial institutions, at least to some degree, self-regulate or come up with a way to try to avoid being involved in this behavior. I think that's kind of the implication here, is that the American authorities will be looking into companies that are involved in sanctions evasion, and it's up to companies, at least to some degree, to do their best to do due diligence here and make sure their companies aren't participating in sanctions evasion or facilitating third-party sanctions evasion. Like we hear about in Kyrgyzstan, for example, exports have gone up like 1,000%, right? So those companies are obviously helping Russia avoid sanctions. Next item, I'm just going to get some water very quickly. It's drone news. So Ukraine has unveiled 2 new drone models, both I consider fairly significant. The first, unfortunately, I couldn't find any actual footage of Tochnyi Skyline, which is actually a jet-powered drone. It's based on something called the UJ23. I've seen a UJ22, which is like a prop propeller aircraft, which I almost showed, but I figured that's not very helpful. So this is a jet-powered drone. It's like imagine a bottle rocket, but smart, right? And bigger, obviously. So the UJ25 Skyline is a new Ukrainian jet-powered drone that's been deployed on the battlefield. The UJ25 can reach targets hundreds of miles away, faster than propeller-driven counterparts, presenting a challenge for Russian defense systems. Its attributes also make it an ideal decoy to distract and confuse Russian air defense systems. The UJ25 was first publicly noticed on a CNN interview with Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister, Mikhailo Fedorov, in September. Its design is derived from the UJ23 Topaz, a target drone adaptable for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions. And any of the guys here can maybe correct me later. I don't know anything about this, but these were recon drones. I'm not sure if they were jet-powered or not, the UJ23. I know the 22 is not. Anyway, both the UJ23 and UJ25 share similar stealthy design features and sizes, but it's unclear exactly how the internal components or other mechanisms differ functionally. Ukrejet, the manufacturer of the UJ23, does not list the UJ25 on its public website. The UJ23 is known for its high speed and ability to be manually controlled or follow pre-programmed routes. It's designed to be recoverable and reusable with a significant combat radius that could suggest a similar range for the UJ25. The UJ25's jet propulsion is a key feature, enabling it to reach potential targets quickly and making it difficult to spot, track, and intercept. Its design and speed make it a versatile platform, capable of functioning as a kamikaze drone, as a decoy, or as a reconnaissance craft. which allows it to draw enemy attention and resources away from actual air defense, actual air assets like missiles, or also directly hit soldiers, or also reconnaissance, basically finding Russian soldiers. So it's multifaceted drone. I would maybe add quickly that the quadcopter drones, both Russia and Ukraine are pretty desperate to develop jet-powered drones because they understand, number one, it's more and more difficult to source these things, or they're more and more expensive, and they can make Ukraine and Russia can both make jet-powered drones relatively easily. Like they have the technology to do that. And indigenously, they're able to make these things. Whereas these little quadcopter drones, these Mavics and things, they're a bit more difficult to produce at scale, right? You basically are dependent on China to do that. So both Ukraine and Russia have been making a significant push, I would say, to move more towards jet-powered drones rather than these quadcopter drones. Not to say that they aren't used ubiquitously, and that both Russia and Ukraine would use whatever drones, propulsion methods they can get their hands on, but I think that that's a pretty significant shift that we'll probably see more of in the future, is these jet-powered drones. Additionally, we have the AQ400, and if the clip person could play the original drone clip again, is the AQ400. This is called the Scythe. It's a kamikaze drone. It's developed by Terminal Autonomy. The presence of AQ400 Scythe on the battlefield has been hinted at, but it hasn't yet been officially confirmed. The recent wave of drone attacks in Crimea, however, do suggest the involvement of these drones in offensive operations already. It's part of a growing trend in unmanned aerial warfare and kamikaze strategic drone attacks on Russian proper territory, as well as occupied Ukraine like Crimea. Terminal Autonomy, the company, is also developing a more advanced cruise missile with a range of 1,000 kilometers and a speed of 350 kilometers per hour. The cost effectiveness and mass production strategy of these drones do make them a potentially disruptive element if they're capable of scaling this production up. Terminal Autonomy aims to increase its production to 500 units per month in the near term and ultimately 1,000 units monthly. Funded by military veterans and a Ukrainian engineer, the company focuses on simple, affordable, disposable, and uncrewed solutions that can be produced at quantity. The Scythe drone is designed to be low cost and long range, intended for strikes deep inside Russian territory. Its assembly and deployment are straightforward, taking only a few minutes, and it can be launched via a tricycle gear, a catapult, or small rocket booster. The Scythe drone can carry a payload of 94 pounds, typically including a 42-kilogram warhead. It can transmit video to operators for target pinpointing within radio line of sight. The drone achieves cruising speeds of 144 kilometers per hour and top speeds of 200 kilometers per hour. It has an endurance of about 6.5 hours. Its range is about 750 kilometers, potentially 900 if you're careful and do it right. This range places Russia and all of occupied Crimea within striking distance from currently Ukrainian-controlled territory. Its operational autonomy is 6.5 hours with a minimum warhead, and it offers flexible launch option. Oh, I mentioned that, sorry. The size starting cost is around 15,000 to 26,000 USD, which is the similar cost range to an Iranian Shahid drone, which is involves the construction materials like milled sheets of plywood from Ukrainian furniture factories, allowing for cost-effective and large-scale production without requiring skilled labor. So the clearly designed to be a scalable option for large volume, inexpensive, to produce drones. Ukraine has increasingly been utilizing long-range kamikaze drones as an effective strategy against Russian-occupied areas and even within Russia itself. This is part of Ukraine's broader strategy, which involves acquiring more than 11,000 medium and long-range attack drones in the coming year. And I think that's going to be a pretty significant part of 2024 is the race to scale up drone technology. I think Ukraine really had the edge in that for a while in both innovation and scale, but it's something that Russia has been taking very seriously. They've been developing a lot of new drone tech and working a lot with allies like Iran and China to improve theirs. And I think we should take Russia's ability to scale drones pretty seriously, and hope that Ukraine is capable of not only developing countermeasures, but Ukraine. This is right now Ukraine's only ability to strike directly into Russia is basically using these drones. So pretty significant strategic asset for Ukraine, and the capacity to produce things indigenously, as I mentioned before, not being reliant on China or external partners like the United States and Europe, who have sometimes strange political red lines and things like that that Ukraine has to deal with. These things is going to be pretty vital, I think. And the final piece of news this year, I guess, in July 2023, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a bill making December 25th the official Christmas holiday in Ukraine. This decision aligns the country with the Western Gregorian calendar, moving it away from the Julian calendar, followed by the main Russian Orthodox Church, which traditionally observed Christmas on January 7th. The change reflects Ukraine's broader efforts to eliminate Russian influence as it continues to counter Moscow's invasion. This shift is seen as vital in various aspects of Ukrainian life, including culture and business. The synchronization of holiday dates within much of Europe is seen as a step towards normalizing and integrating Ukraine into the broader European community for both culture and business. So, having the holidays around the same time is going to be very crucial, I think, for certain business communities. The decision resonates with many Ukrainians who view it as part of a larger journey towards European integration and a rejection of ties to Russia, including the language and cultural elements like the date. This sentiment was echoed by a Kyiv Orthodox priest, Mikhailo Omylin, who noted that anything associated with Russia has become distasteful to many Ukrainians. Ukrainian historians have also noted that Ukraine actually did celebrate Christmas on December 25th, prior to their annexation and subjugation by the Russian Empire. So to a certain extent, this is a return to Ukraine's historical roots to celebrate Christmas on December 25th. And of course, the war will not be ending. There will be no Christmas truce or anything like that for Ukrainians. So we wished Ukrainians the most Merry Christmas possible under the circumstances. And we hope that in the coming year, the legislators in the West will come back from their little holiday break and get serious about supporting Ukraine with the material that it needs to win the war. So that concludes my news for this week. Merry Christmas, everyone. I got to go get a ham. So thanks, everyone. I will look forward to listening to the VOD of German Aid to Ukraine's report for Christmas, because I'm sure it's going to be very festive and interesting. So thanks again, everybody. See you guys in the new year.
Yeah, I'm not that sure if it's that interesting. It's a short report, but first I want to talk about the question Calendar just asked in the chat. Can drones replace ammo, or at least fill the gap of ammo, of the ammo shortage for Ukraine? For my personal experience, I mean, I'm not that kind of a military guy, but in my personal experience, in some kind, yes, but not to the full extent. I just want to say that a lot of people always forget that as more advanced Western-made artillery equipment Ukraine gets, as less ammunition they need. Like, for example, there was, I believe half a year ago or something, a news report in Germany out, an interview with Ukrainian soldiers which operate Panzerhaubitze in Ukraine. And they were involved in the recapture of Kupiansk, when I remember that right, and they had to destroy a bridge with the Panzerhaubitze 2000, and they said they needed about like 12 to 20 rounds of artillery ammunition, of 155 ammunition. And the commander of that Panzerwitze said with a Soviet-made or Russian-made equipment, they needed at least 50 to 60 rounds or shells more for the same purpose. So when they get more Western equipment, they also need less ammunition. So Ukraine doesn't need the same amount of ammunition as the Russians need due to the technical advanced weapons. So yeah, that's my take. I don't know if Jonathan or Erland want to say something about it.
Yeah. So to a certain extent, it cannot replace ammo. It can maybe not fill the gap either, I believe, but it can, in a way, it can, as you say, lower the need of set ammo, but not for every weapon system. I would say that you cannot replace mortar with drones, for instance. And you can also not replace, especially these high-end precision strike munitions with drones either. You cannot either replace it with the DPICM. So it's, I mean, they do address different issues, and it's a new capability. If Ukraine has more drones, maybe that can fill some of the gap, yes, but I do not think it can replace completely any other capability that already exists. It's more like a new thing in the domain that Ukraine needs to also develop and advance, if you understand me, Kellen.
Yeah, and for the second question, are most of Ukraine's artillery pieces now Western made? I actually don't know that. Maybe Erland or Jonathan know. But when I look at the amount of Panzerhaubitze 2000s, for example, supplied by Germany and Netherlands and Italy, it's less than 30, when I remember right. Maybe the cheaper ones, like the M777s, are supplied much more, but I don't think that Ukraine has more Western-made artillery pieces than Soviet ones.
No, I think they still have quite a large amount of the Soviet-made artillery pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, but go on with the segment. So. Starting with Monday, Rheinmetall made public that the German government has once again contracted the company with the production of artillery ammunition for Ukraine. Speaking of which, in total, tens of thousands of shells worth hundreds of millions of euros will be delivered in 2025. This, of course, likely means that the order books of Rheinmetall for the year 2024 are already full, which is a good thing in general. The German association Deutsche Lepra- und Tuberkulosehilfe e.V. and the city of Würzburg are supporting a children's hospital in Lviv in setting up a modern rehabilitation center. This was made public on Thursday. The volume of the project is around 812,000 euros, of which around 2/3 comes from Germany. The number of children treated in the hospital center could increase from 500 to around 1,200 thanks to the additional funding. The funds were used, for example, to buy modern, high-quality equipment that enables child-oriented rehabilitation services. This involves movement exercises, but also the treatment of chronic pain. On Wednesday, the Office of the Federal Prosecutor made public that German authorities want to confiscate financial assets of a Russian financial institution, totaling more than 720 million euros for trying to circumvent sanctions. Unknown persons responsible for the Russian financial institution attempted to withdraw the money from the German bank responsible and transfer them back to Russia after the sanctions came into force in June 2022. However, the transfer was not executed by the German bank responsible. Also on Wednesday, the State Chancellery of North Rhine-Westphalia had donated 119 power generators, 35 hospital beds, jackets, blankets, and thermal mats to the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, which is a partner region of the federal state. The generators are mainly intended to supply administrative buildings, medical practices, and educational institutions with electricity. Everything was handed over to the German-Ukrainian Association Blau-Gelbes Kreuz e.V., which will take over the transport to Ukraine. A day later, the German Foreign Office announced that Germany is providing Ukraine with a further 88.5 million euros via the Energy Support Fund. Ukraine uses this fund to finance energy sources, spare parts, and equipment such as transformers and generators, which help to maintain Ukraine's energy supply. A further portion of the funds will be used for green energy transition projects, such as photovoltaic systems on public buildings and green reconstruction of Ukraine. In the same press release, they also made public that Germany will provide Ukraine with over 1.6 billion euros in development, military, and humanitarian aid this winter. On the same day, the Zaporizhzhia Regional Administration made public that they have handed over 2 fully equipped ambulances to a healthcare facility in cooperation with IAM Ukraine. The entire project was co-funded by Germany. On Friday, the State Chancellery of Saxony has announced that they have donated 3 minibuses and 11 generators to the Kyiv region. The whole aid package is worth around 100,000 euros. The minibuses will be used in Ukraine for evacuation purposes, while the generators will be used in vital infrastructure facilities. Also on Friday, the German government updated the list of military assistance to Ukraine and made public that they have delivered the following to Ukraine in the past week: 3 Gepard Sparks along with 30,200 rounds of ammunition, 10 Vector UAVs, 2 HX-81 tank transporters, 5 semi-trailers for the HX-81 tank transporters, 8 Mercedes-Benz Zetros, 2 recent 1MC mine-clearing tanks, 2 border protection vehicles, 8 regular vehicles, 2 AMPS self-protection systems for helicopter, and ammunition for Leopard 2 A6 main battle tanks, 2,500 rounds shells of 155 artillery, around 25,500 rounds of 40mm ammunition for automatic grenade launchers, and medical material. And as the last item, today the Ukrainian ambassador to Germany, Oleksiy Makeyev, said in an interview that Germany is not one of the countries pressuring Ukraine to negotiate with Russia, neither in public nor behind bars. So, closed doors, not bars. We are not in prison, guys. We're not in prison. So, good news to the end. And that's a summary of this week's German aid to Ukraine.
Thank you, Germany to Ukraine. I know that Jonathan wanted to talk about a picture that he dropped from the stream, so I'm not sure. But I can try and address a question that I thought it came from YouTube, but I see that it's from Twitter. And it's Fjord Fella, and he is asking if we will see a higher frequency of targets hit in Moscovia. Okay, so funny. Going forward with the new drones, I do think that they are going to, use these capabilities that they are expanding more and more if they can expand them and scale production. We saw some long-range strikes with drones into Russia last year or last winter as well. But I do think that they're going to prioritize military targets and fuel depots, logistics, etc., factories, things like this. And not sure if they're going to prosecute, let's say, political objectives in Moscow. I don't think Ukraine has that luxury, if you can say it like that. Jonathan, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thanks. I was just going to point out to the audience a couple of related podcasts on this topic. One being between Tochny's wonderful Ben and Freight Monkey from August the 11th. Now, hang on a minute. I might be off. 1 second.
Are you talking about the bridges in Russia?
That's right.
Yeah.
Bridges in Russia. Yes. Yeah. That is the. You know what? I'm not going to embarrass myself live on air by giving the wrong date. But if you look back at the Tochnyi Spotify or Apple podcast series, you will find a number of podcasts on this topic. Like you say, Ukraine's been prosecuting this war by solely attacking legitimate military targets. It has never, from the outset of the Russian invasion on the full-scale invasion on the 24th of February, it has launched attacks against assaulting Russian forces in Russia about to invade Ukraine. And it does so entirely legitimately. I think it's not just reasonable to assume, but we should certainly expect this, as you said, Erland. Just on the question of Spotify podcasts, there's going to be a few going up in the next few days, so please stay tuned.
I also see a couple of questions I would like to address before we go ahead with the picture of the week, Jonathan. It's Fjord Fella asking again, what about Taurus? Any progress? I don't know, Germany to Ukraine. Do you know anything? Because I haven't seen anything for months.
Yeah, there's no progress. And I know people want to see the weapon system in Ukraine. And it's nothing personal against you or anyone else, but you really should stop asking about it, because unless it's my answer every time I get answered about this, questions about this, is always the same. Unless the US delivers a similar capable system, and I'm not talking about ATACMS with 100 and 60 miles range or something. For the Chancellor, it has to be a similar capable system with the same range, which means about 700 kilometers range, which is how many miles? 500 something or so? 400 something? I'm not sure. And unless the US is delivering this, there's no Taurus in Ukraine. And there won't be next year, there won't be in 2025 unless the US steps forward. I mean, of course, I see this as a German. I want also Taurus for Ukraine. But people always forget that when we deliver Taurus, other stuff is missing. And apart from that, I shouldn't talk too long about this. No, there's not any progress about this.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. That was informative. And last question from Kellen before we move to the picture of the week and close the stream. How many F-16s does Ukraine need to effectively provide frontline troops with air support? I heard something like 200 airframes. I am definitely not an aviation expert, but what I have been made to understand, it's maybe not necessarily the amount of airframes, but it's more about Ukraine being able to utilize them for very complex operations like close air support. That is probably not going to be, as far as I understand, something they can do very quickly when they've gotten the F-16 transferred, because they need to integrate these aircrafts and systems into their system of logistics, the operations, and the pilots needs to be trained. Not just trained; they need more experience than just the introduction training, basically, that they're getting right now. I would love to see F-16s being used in close air support, because I think that's a capability Ukraine really needs, and it has a very large impact that they don't have F-16s or similar capabilities right now. But I think we will have to be patient, and Ukraine needs to get these pilots flying quite regularly before we're going to see that. That's at least what I've been told by people who know this and know aviation stuff a lot more better than me. So if that addresses your question,
Yeah.
I'm happy.
I would like to add to that. I'm also not an aviation guy, of course, but I did some quick Googling, and according to the Ukrainian presidential advisor, maybe you know him, Mikhailo Poljak. Sorry, I'm very, very bad with Ukrainian names. He said that Ukraine needs something between 60 and 18 F-16 fighter jets to really secure the Ukrainian sky. So, yeah. And he said this in, hold on, the article is from mid-July this year.
Yeah. And I'm also uncertain about this news that Ukraine are getting transferred 16 aircrafts now from the Dutch. I'm not sure if that means that they will be transferred to Ukraine, or that they will be transferred to basically Ukraine, to being able to utilize them for the training that they are currently undergoing. I'm not sure. I didn't see any information about that. I also know that Norway has. So there was an article in a Norwegian defense paper where they basically say that the aircrafts are going to be transferred from Norway in the spring, or early spring, late winter.
Yeah. Addressing another question, I heard rumors that there could be good news about 155 ammo coming from the EU. Any truth to that? I'm not sure about the EU. The last thing, I'm assuming that you're referring to the joint EU procurement, and the last thing I heard about that was last week from Germany, that we have contracted a French company with the delivery of 68,000 155 jets to Ukraine for over 100 million euros. And there's a framework contract in total that would be 350,000 shells, and other countries can also order from that framework contract Germany has made. That was the latest news I heard in terms of the joint procurement. Do you heard anything else, Erland?
No, but I remember when it was addressed by, I think, a EU official, the fact that they will not reach the target of 1 million additional shells within March. He was asked if there was going to be, they were going to look from other countries, the possibility of acquiring munitions outside the EU. And what I think he said is something like that they need to exhaust all other possibilities before they do that. Maybe that is that should be close to what situation is right now, which I really hope that they're gonna just put down the money and buy shells from something like South Korea, because Ukraine needs these now. It's not about getting them in the end of next year or something like that. The need is right now. So if there is a possibility to buy off market and ship it to Ukraine, then I really hope that is going to happen soon, and they don't wait until March to decide what they're going to do with the money that is left over from this this effort. And yeah, some people say it's failed. I tend to kind of agree that it's very disappointing, but they have gotten more shells because of this initiative, at least. So it did lead to something good.
Yeah, true. I mean, the big problem with that is always, I remember what Pistorius, the German Minister of Defense, for example, said, that the dream or the figure 1 million shells for Ukraine in this time frame, in his opinion, from day one, was never going to achieve. They never are able to achieve this 1 million shells. And problem was when we not have pledged like 1 million shells, maybe 300,000 or 400,000, we would have actually achieved that kind of or that many. So would be your disappointment then not disappointment? Does it make sense? Erland?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So yeah.
So I have a Daniele kind of requesting to join. I'm going to ask him if you can you come and speak right now, Daniele, or later?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I will probably be able to join in 20 minutes, I think.
Okay.
But if you have any question, I'm very happy to answer, especially when we talk about 155.
Thank you, Daniele.
You're welcome.
I, to be honest, think that the stream will be over in 20 minutes.
I suspect that as well. Jonathan, do you want to talk about the picture of the week?
Sure. I can perhaps talk about it for 20 minutes, given the
Oh boy.
salacious...
I go grab a beer. Hold on.
All right. Yeah. So we thought about, we had a couple of ideas for picture of the week this week, everybody. Something, a picture of the week, a picture associated with this week, however you want to say it. Something maybe Christmas themed, like Santa on skis, for example. That would be fun and appropriate. What we've gone for instead is a painting of oil on panel called Winter Twilight in Ukraine. And it's by Ukrainian painter Ivan Pavlovich Pokhitonov. So I'm just going to wait for the slide to come up. There we go. Right. So, yeah. So Ivan Pokhitonov was born in Kherson on the 27th of January, 1850, specifically in a town called Matryonovka. And he had a life involving scandal of the most salacious kind, salient perhaps to this time of year. He was born into a fortunate family in comparison to many others during this time. His father was a retired military man who had received a title of nobility and who was also a member of the Kherson Governing Committee, and he also supervised the local Zemstov school and was an honorary magistrate, which is, yes, a highly powerful position back in 1850 as it was in the Middle Ages. So Ivan was a fairly lucky chap in comparison to many of his contemporaries. He used this advantage well, though. At the age of 7, he was already making copies of Dutch engravings that decorated his home. In 1868, he entered into the Petrovskaya Agricultural Academy in Moscow. At that time, many of the students there held revolutionary opinions, and he attended speeches lamenting the plight of small farmers, particularly in Kherson and Ukraine, where he had been born. He became caught up in the complicated events involving the politics of the time, but somehow he did escape serious punishment. He was, however, expelled from his school and sent home in disgrace, with a letter in hand, no doubt. And the school told his father to supervise him. They also told the police to supervise him as well. What form this took, we do not know. But in 1871, he was allowed to enroll at the university in Odessa, where he took classes in drawing and watercolors, in addition to his regular courses of other studies. These classes would be his only formal art instruction. But he made good use of this education. Shortly afterwards, he traveled to Geneva with his mother and sister, where he exhibited his watercolors, most of them landscapes like the one you see here. These were evidently a success. So after a brief period of employment at the Bank of Odessa, he traveled to a fairly glamorous country named Italy. But for whatever reason, he decided to head north and settle in Paris. He exhibited regularly at the salons of notable philanthropists, and several of his paintings were purchased by a famous art collector of the time named Pavel Trekhyatov. And he would then later sign a lucrative contract with a French gentleman called Georges Petit. In 1881, however, scandal doth arose. He received an order from the Empire government at the time, the Russian Empire government, to paint a series of panels depicting scenes from the Russo-Turkish War. In order to complete this work and to travel to the appropriate places to paint these scenes, he decided that he needed somebody to travel with, and he settled on a young lady named Matilda von Wuffelwirth. Matilda was a Swedish-Finnish medical student he had met at the Russian Artists Club. They were married in Chernovice in 1882. She was a remarkable woman in herself. She was a leading women's rights activist and feminist, and devoted to her career as a scientist and a researcher. However, unfortunately, Ivan Pokitonov and Matilda's, quote, temperaments began to clash in the period after 1882. This led to a teensy-weensy bit of a scandal. In 1892, he asked for a divorce, but Matilda refused. In response to this, Ivan began an affair with her younger sister, Eugenia. Their family life, involving their kids, as many do at Christmas, of course, unfortunately broke down after this. Matilda went on to pursue her own career as a scientist, specifically a dermatologist and medical researcher. Ivan spent 8 months painting in Italy at a small village outside Naples, then deciding that he could no longer live anywhere near the places that he basically had lived up to then. He decided to move with Matilda's younger sister Eugenie to Liège in Belgium. They traveled around a bit around Europe, and in 1901 he acquired an estate in the Minsk Governorate at the time, where he lived and worked until 1906, when he returned to Belgium. He seemed to like Belgium quite a lot. He was elected to the Imperial Academy of Arts in 1904. It was, I should say, that during World War I, he lived in St. Petersburg until the beginning of the revolution, after which he fled to Kuban, where he stayed for a year. The collapse of the White Army movements in 1922 basically led him to move permanently from the country. But this picture here in 1890, Winter Twilight, is one which is the kind of oil painting which he became and has become famous for. From a landscape which is harsh and merciless to any invader, and the people who live within have adapted to it. So wherever you are this Christmas, Tochnyi wishes you a good one, as safe and as happy as possible Christmas as you can hope for, given whatever circumstances you are in. And that is our picture of the week. I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. That was very interesting. And I like the picture very much. It's a beautiful picture. I got a question from a listener in DM, and the question is, do you think the 1 million shells was part of a psyop to make Russia shake their boots a bit? I don't think so. I think that it was very serious effort, and the money put on the table was definitely, that's an indication that this was absolutely something they wanted to make happen. But unfortunately, the process of getting the production up and also acquiring and getting the contracts down didn't work as we hoped. I see also Kellen asked similar or a relevant question as well. Is it the lack of political willpower, long contracting process, or some other reason why EU can't supply the 1 million shells? I think it's a combination of a lot of different things, and it's also a problem with coordination between the countries. There are many countries who should have been, jumping on this program, but that didn't. And I'm unaware if it was communicated well enough before this suggestion came up, and also it was implemented with the possible providers of munition and the nations that have large production capacity, because I think it might have been a little bit conflicting with their interests politically. Yeah.
If I can add to that, of course I can only speak for Germany and not for other countries. But since Germany is one of the largest providers or manufacturers or manufacturing countries of artillery ammunition with Rheinmetall, for example, I think with Rheinmetall, we see due to the contracts, and they're very open about this, that the order books, like I said in my weekly summary, the order books for 2024 in terms of artillery ammunition are already full. So therefore, you could argue that Rheinmetall is working on full capacity. Otherwise, they wouldn't be full. And I think that Rheinmetall, also based on articles, interviews, etc., with Pappberger, for example, the CEO of Rheinmetall, I think that he is waiting, or Rheinmetall is waiting, or wants to have large contracts worth billions of euros on a regular basis. What the German government is doing is doing contracts on a regular basis, but in million euro range, like 100 million euros, 200 million euros, something like this. And they want this with billions, and then they would be expanding. Also, what you see is the lack of explosives, for example. Here in Germany, for example, in Saxony, there was an explosive factory, should be, when I remember right. I might mess something up. But when I remember right, an explosive factory should be built up, and the local authorities declined this. And then in Treusberg, one of the largest or most important producer of explosives, which gets used, for example, for artillery shells, for mortar shells, etc., which is a key supplier to Rheinmetall and also to and it's a part company of Diehl. They want to expand their production capacities, and also the local authorities declined this. So yeah, that's at least what's happening in Germany. So unless the German government pays billions of euros each month, which of course won't happen, yeah, I don't think that anything will change. And Pistorius himself said that Ukraine, I believe he said in 2025, the artillery deliveries to Ukraine will go up from Germany. So the next year will be most likely maybe a bit more than this year, like maybe 1,000, 2,000 shells more each month, maybe a little bit more than that, but nothing big. And in 2025, it will be much more than. Yeah.
I do believe maybe Daniele is ready. Daniele, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can speak. Yes.
Okay, I will attempt to show your slide.
Oh yes, I saved in a TIFF as a TIFF file. I'm not sure it will be compliant with the stream. Hopefully it is.
Yeah, I will screen share it. Okay. Yes. It's on the screen, Daniele.
Yeah, okay. So this slide essentially will, sorry for the background noise. This shall essentially represent on the y-axis you have the 155 shell produced by Germany, and you can see some red marks. The red marks are an accumulative number. All this data has been collected by Germany Aid to Ukraine, and I just took from the first time he reported artillery shell 155 delivered, not pledged, and I just did the plot and I tried to analyze with other information freely available online. So what you can see is that there have been a start roughly in October in delivery. This was anticipated by a pledge of around 30,000 shell. And after this, nearly regularly, this delivery happened. And as you can see, they jumped around December with a very large increase in the amount of shell delivered per delivery. And there are also another very interesting plot, which is the delivery by date. So by each date, essentially, this is not the cumulative number, but essentially the amount of ammunition that they have been provided with that particular delivery. And as you can see, there is like an up and down, but we can average around 3,050 artillery shell delivered. Now, this number is particularly important because you have to put in perspective then I call this SPM, so the shell per month. So every month you have a certain amount of artillery shell that are delivered. And if you can see here, these are represented by the green square. 3 green square because we have a slot in October, quite late because it was just the end of October. Then we have the end of November, and then essentially now, December. And as you can see, the first 2 delivery were quite consistent, around 3,800, 3,400. But just at the very end, we have this bump in delivery. Now, there are different reasons why this happened. One is that there is an increase in production, but the problem is that this is not possible because the increase in production should be reflected in the delivery per date. and we have just an abrupt increase on a single day. In fact, if you can see at the very end of the black line, there is like a spike after it goes down around the 10th of December. It goes up again and then down again. And if you exclude this outlier, essentially we are roughly around 3,050 shell per delivery. So this outlier essentially is probably due to not increase in production. So it's not like a genuine consistent increase in production. Otherwise, we should have an higher number also in the later one. But probably it's because Rheinmetall, because it's very committed, and this is a good thing, don't take me wrong, committing, delivering what they promised. They took from another manufacturer and just delivered. So, and this is, of course, the more likely possibility. The other one is that just that they said, oh, well, we promised 30,000, so we should stick with that. But this is very unlikely because at the moment the total figure is around 25,000. So if they can produce more, why don't just complete the entire delivery? So my personal opinion is that the production is very similar to other small manufacturers like Italy or France, which have around 700, 500 shell per day in the best case scenario. If you have any question, I'm very open. Sorry for the background noise.
No, that was perfect, Daniele. No problem. We could hear that you're in a busy place, but that's fine. You could hear what you wanted to share with us perfectly fine. So thank you very much. I think we are coming to an end of this stream. Jonathan, did you want to share something with us before we stop the stream?
Sure. Thank you. I'd like to thank Daniela for that research. That's illuminating. Of course, this is a festive season, which it cannot be. We cannot escape the fact that Russia claims it has 4.5 million Ukrainians living during this festive season in conditions we and other research groups know are ones of subjugation and of torture. There are children who are confused or traumatized, adults who have seen and experienced things which people in peaceful countries like mine in the West thankfully do not have to endure, because Ukraine is the cliff against which the waves of Russian fascism have been breaking for 9 years and continue to do so this Christmas, this winter, and into 2024. Thank you to everybody who contributes to Tochnyi and the research that we do here. Thank you for your questions and comments. We look forward to speaking and hearing from you again soon. Slava Ukraini.
Heroyam Slava.
Heroyam Slava.
On behalf of the brave.